Hey everybody, so let's get started. This is a future lab, and future labs are per definition exciting, interactive, and very short, so we only have 1 hour. So if you can find your seat, that would be awesome. And this future lab is about just transition and the future of work. So everybody who has a job, wants a job, needs a job, you're at the right place to know what will happen and how we actually will work in the future, because we have an awesome panel. And we have a question for you as well. So before my boss, Dr. Mahmoud, shows up, maybe we can do like the interactive part first and hear from you. And maybe we can have also the right slides on the screen. That would be great. So we get the logistics out of the way, get started slowly. And while we do that, I also give our wonderful moderator like a copy of what this wonderful panel looks like. One sec. So wonderful. As I said, and I really like this room. It's not too big and it's not too small. We want to start with an icebreaker, but it is week five. Yeah, it feels like week 5. It's day 5 of this COP. So maybe we start actually with a very, very short warm-up. I feel it's warm inside here, but still, I haven't stretched in quite a while. I think everybody else also needs to get up. And we really engage you very quickly in a warming up exercise. Yeah, just do this with me. Yeah. And then do it the other side, do it 5 seconds. It really helps. Get all the tensions out. Yeah, and really, hopefully, get that into the mood to work collectively on what the future needs to look like. And with that, maybe find a partner you haven't necessarily talked to. So don't talk to your colleague. Talk to somebody else in the room. Take 3 minutes and actually exchange what are solutions of today that can be scaled to ensure a just transition to net zero. And obviously, you all come from different angles to this. So there are no correct answers necessarily. I mean, there are correct answers, but there are no wrong answers to that question. So yeah, just share what you actually bring to a just transition. And then we will actually report back very quickly, like 2 or 3 examples that you think actually need to be scaled in the future. So yeah, let's get on this. 1 more minute. Okay, guys, let's take a seat. I hope you had some good exchange. And as I said, we will have a little bit of a report back. So anything interesting that you heard from your partner and that from your perspective answers the question that was still on the screen, please raise your hand. And introduce yourself as well, please, to the rest of the audience.
I'm Spencer from Antigua, and I had a great partner.
Sorry, mic not working.
Hi, Ruth Spencer from Antigua. I had a great partner. We shared, but I felt, who are the solutions for? Is it for the people? Is it for the politicians? Is it for the investors? We have to ensure that the solutions are for the people. So they have to be adapted that way.
I totally agree.
Thank you. Extremely valuable input. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? What else, do you think, the solutions that we are scaling and that we need to scale fast and efficient, how do they need to look like?
Hi, thanks for the little exercise. It's a very complex question, right? And hard to predict the future, but to me, in any case, what we talked about, the one cross-cutting, most impactful issue is education. I feel like, if we go all in on education, if we put all of our chips on education, that's the one thing that can actually impact all of the challenges we're facing, right? So to me, the vision for the future is just much more higher quality, more accessible education for everyone, everywhere.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to share any solutions that you are working on that relate to a just transition? I hope, honestly, everybody who is at this COP is working on a just transition of many sectors. But anything you would like to share, from your work, from the exercise that we just did, just raise your hand. And otherwise, I'm pleased to introduce our panel because they have a lot to say about what the solutions are that they are working on and that need to be scaled. They will share with you stories from their work and their experience in specific countries, and we have a really very broad range of countries, different contexts, continents, sectors that we are covering. So it will be, I think, a very rich discussion. But before we do that, I see another hand. So let's take that to frame it. And meanwhile, while we hear from the gentleman in front, maybe we can bring up the panel. Mustafa, bring in your people. So Simon, Patrick, Jeline, Rebecca, take a seat, and while you actually give us your solution for Just Transition.
Ok, merci. Moi, je suis professeur Ali Mahaman de l'Université de Difa au Niger. C'est de préparer les jeunes, les futures générations.
Merci beaucoup. C'était en français. That was in French, but he said like the young people are the solution actually, and engaging young people in the Just Transition need to be part of the solutions that we're talking about. And I think Jeline will also talk about women, just a spoiler alert. Not only the young, but also, obviously women. So without further ado, maybe I hand over to Mustafa Kamal from the International Labour Organization, who will moderate this panel, and thank all the wonderful guests for being here. Almost perfect timing. We also had a keynote from my boss, the UN High-Level Champion Mahmoud Moualdine of this COP. And while you already got yourself into the mood of what is needed, he will also share a couple of thoughts on what is needed for a just transition. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and it's good to be just my good luck that I didn't arrive late than that, but I'll be very brief. Just to highlight the importance of the topic and try to encourage some practical solutions coming out from this session today, focusing on implementation. I had a very good discussion during the days of the summit. And the first day there was a round table led by the heads of state. The co-chairs in this session that I moderated was the President of South Africa and the President of the European Council. And it was very clear really that people may have different definitions and perspective of what just means. I think we can consult some philosophy textbooks about that. It's all about how to operationalize what we mean by just, and how can we apply international standards and the expectations from society, from countries, especially in developing economies when we do that. And the good thing is that we have, when it comes to the impact of transformation and dealing with disruptions, either through the impact of the climate crisis itself, or sometimes even worse, when we are trying to provide cures to the crisis if we are not handling them properly. During the celebration of 100 years of existence of the ILO, there were many important outcomes, and I'd like to recognize the leadership of Guy Ryder, the former head of the ILO, who spent 3 years working on matters related to just transition and impact on labor markets, and how to deal with issues from climate, challenges of sustainability, matters related to digitalization, and issues related to shocks coming from technology transfer as well. So I was happy really to see in this in that discussion that I moderated that these ideas have been shared between the South and the North, because they are really very much in common sense. If we want to take it in a few stages of action, there are 4. The first one is related to policy formulation and the institutions that are required to apply these policies at the national level, including regulatory policy. The second is related to framing the financial needs. I would say that the best in existence now, which is not always applied, is the integrated national financial framework that is associated with sustainability at large, including sustainable development goals, which, as we know, include SDG 13, climate action, and SDG 8, which is dealing with growth and jobs. So an integrated national financial framework, I think it's very much emphasized as well by the recent report that came from Vera Songwe and Nick Stern, which was commissioned by COP26 and COP27, that you need to identify the needs and you need to mobilize the sources of finance from public, private, domestic and external finance. And it could be a good way as well to consider better debt management and more effective trade when you are doing all of that. So that gets me into the third point, which is basically about how to mobilize finance effectively. And if we are just stopping at the 100 billion, yes, they were important. Nice round figure announced 2009, never been submitted in full in any year, even if you are generous enough to use the metric that is being used on the official report of the 100 billion. They are roughly 80%. If you believe more on Oxfam and its sisters and brothers, the figure is ranging between 20 to 25% of the commitment since 2009. The sad story here, the 100 billion is not sufficient even if it is going to be fully there. It's less than 3% of the requirements. The other thing is that only out of 23 countries, 7 countries are adhering to the rules and they are submitting their finance in full. Again, if you believe in the metric. That needs to change because what we are going to be after in order to provide the kind of finance for implementation, we need at least 10 times that figure from 100 billion to $1 trillion. And again, my reference here is the good work of the background notes to that report by Nick Stern and Vera Songwe, which is available and it has been launched here, as I said. So here I think we need to go beyond public finance, private finance, how to get NDB support better. And we have, or I have rather, because it's not a we yet, I see some good reactions to this proposal. But one of the areas to deal with this inefficient, unfair, and insufficient climate finance architecture is through getting the multilateral development banks availing funds in concessional terms, not just to low-income countries, but to middle-income countries, by extending the rules of engagement of IDA and its terms to the low-middle-income countries. The very final point, and that can really, if all of what I said now looks like global or national or hard to deal with, let me get into the final point. After policy, institutions, integrated national financial frameworks, and effective mobilization of funding, there is that famous project that came from Glasgow and the JETP about the South African projects. That is going to be the best analogy of if it works, and so far it's not fully there, it will be a good example of just transition because it has the good money, $8.5 billion for that project, phasing out from coal, which is fantastic if it happens, especially if you have the alternative in the form of investments in renewable energy. Thing is that still this project is struggling until it is fully there on track. We wish our brothers in South Africa the best in cooperation with the G7 supporters. But the most critical element is not the technical or the scientific solution of phasing out or phasing in. Phasing out the bad and phasing in the good is basically how to deal with labor, how to deal with the workforce, with human beings, with their attachments to their work and the values that could be compromised and the dignity that should be protected while we are doing that. So just transition, quoting the Secretary General, it's basically without just transition, there is no transition. And if there is any kind of transition that will compromise the dignity of the people and their society, this is not the needed transition that we are pushing for. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this inspiring speech, and I just hand over to Mustafa and for our panelists to build on these important points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and high appreciation to Dr. Mohaideen for this very inspiring keynote opening. And I think, as he has said, and as the UN Secretary General has said, there can be a transition if there is not a just transition. Now, this panel is a panel of innovation, we are not in the world of today. We are supposed to be projecting ourselves in the world of 2050 and find solutions that would have been forged now for that world of 2050. So I would invite our distinguished panelists to be putting us in that trajectory of 2050 with the innovative solutions that would have hopefully helped address many of the problems we have today with decarbonization, but one that is inclusive, that delivers economic growth, that is sustainable and shared, one that delivers more and better jobs and ensures a just transition for all. So I would like to start with ladies go first, but Rebecca, shall we do that? All right, fantastic. So it is my pleasure to start with Ms. Rebecca Okello Obango, who is a program coordinator for climate change, just transition and environment at the Central Organization of Trade Unions in Kenya. So I think, Rebecca, these challenges that we talk about here, they are not just words. They are meaningful in the lives of workers, of people, of enterprises, and communities in Kenya. And so we very much look forward to seeing how you would see that future of work in 2050 and the innovative solutions that would have taken us there from your perspective. Over to you.
Hello. Oh. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Okello Abongo. As has been said, I'm a programs coordinator in a Central Organization of Trade Unions in Kenya. And the issues of climate change has greatly impacted us. Let me bring it to a scale of our experience as trade unions in Kenya. In 2015, after the Paris Agreement, the Kenyan government decided, which was a good initiative, the banning of plastic bags. That is the banning of single use of plastic bags in Kenya to a more convenient, climate-sensitive bags. So in that process, it ended up bringing about job losses in the manufacturing sector, where we had about 300 workers losing their jobs in that process. So losing jobs at that point was a shock for the trade union and shock for the workers specifically. And we didn't have solutions, we didn't have answers on how to ensure these workers go back to their form of employment. And the introduction of Just Transition as a way of greening the economy so that it can provide decent and quality jobs of workers. Us as COTU, we began the program of the climate change program, where we majorly go through training of our trade union leadership and workers and the shop stewards and the industrial relation officers, where we bring them into an understanding what climate change is and what does climate change future bring about to us. And one of the major achievement or one of the major activities that is bringing about change in the trade union is that the understanding of our members and the understanding of the management. You see, there are more policies that are geared towards issues of climate change. Like currently, the hotel sector are working towards developing of the CBA to develop a clause that ensures workers working in the hotel sector. Because currently, with the adverse climatic condition in the country, we have experienced a lot of floods in the hotel sector, and most workers are also being retrenched because the hotel, half of the hotel is submerged in water. So workers who are represented in the union are not working, and we didn't have solution also for them. So the CBA clause is meant to bring about reinstating the workers in another position that ensures them to have a continuous job in that specific sector, and also bring about occupational safety and health issues that cushion workers who work in adverse climatic conditions. Because you know, people in the hotel sector are always outside the hotel. Most of them are not located in an office environment. So we are trying to bring about an understanding to the management so that they can have amicable solution to workers in case of change of environment or end of jobs in that specific sector. The CBA will be able to cushion them. Another activity that we partake as trade unions in Kenya, we have a team known as the Green Representative, where they are responsible to ensure sectorial issues of climate change is understood. So we intensively engage the green representatives, where the green representatives, shortly as green reps, they are climate change foot soldiers in respective unions that COTU represent, our affiliates. So let us bring it to the agricultural sector, which currently is also going through mechanization. You know, in Kenya, coffee, tea picking is done manually, but now they're automating that sector, which is another problem for us. So with the green representative, they thoroughly negotiate to ensure our members are skilled in the upcoming technologies in those sectors. Also, we are doing a project with the TVET, the training institution, where we are skilling workers in the building and construction sector, painting, the hotel sector, where we are skilling them on green climate skills. And also the TVETs are also transforming their curriculum to cater for green jobs solution. Like in the building sector, the TVET is bringing in machinery that are climate sensitive, and their curriculum is based on training workers on future climate change skills. So those are the major tangible solutions you are working in the trade union. And also with the tripartite form of engagement, we work with the government to ensure every policy and litigation, especially we are sensitive on the word just transition, to ensure any transition in any job sector, it's decent, quality, and inclusive. So that is those are the major issues we are approaching, from a policy framework to trainings, and also the financial needs towards this transition.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Rebecca. I like that you brought the issue of occupational safety and health. And I think this is important because already a reality. We have estimated that a continued warming of temperatures would lead to a loss of 2% of total working time by 2030. And two of the sectors mostly impacted are agriculture, construction, but also tourism. And this means a lot. So, and importantly, this year, the International Labour Conference made occupational safety and health a fundamental right. I think there is a good way, and I appreciate, thanks, Dr. Mohaldin, for the time, and we appreciate and we'll keep going with the discussion. Thank you so much. But with that, I think this is fundamental. You touched upon TVET and skilling, and I think, Simon, I'll be happy to come back to you on that point. But in the meantime, it's my pleasure to bring in Jivan Connors Belopopsky, who is Chief of Staff and Chief External Affairs Officer at the Clean Cooking Alliance. Jivan, have I said it all right? So over to you, please.
Thank you. I think my vision for 2050, which I believe is the question and what we're supposed to start with, is really a world where all women are empowered to live happy, healthy, and fulfilling lives of their choosing. And this is the only way that we will achieve our climate goals, a just transition, and any of our development objectives. And we are so far away from this reality right now, and I love the idea of this lab for us to brainstorm and think about all of the amazing innovations and inventions and ways that we can get to a just transition. But I think for us to truly plan for that, we have to be honest and open and accept the reality of where we stand today.
And we know that there are multiple political and socioeconomic factors that limit women's full participation, access to resources, and ability to thrive. But there is one very often overlooked constraint that we can change immediately, that will unlock the potential of women as full and productive members of society to help drive this just energy transition that we are all here discussing. And that is the fact that 2.4 billion people around the world, mainly women and children, do not have access to clean cooking solutions and instead rely on traditional biomass and polluting open fires to cook their meals every single day and to provide for their families. And we know women around the world will do anything for their families. They will travel 5 hours a day to collect firewood, to make charcoal, to spend 8 to 10 hours in a smoky room preparing what little food they have grown themselves for their families. And this is a major constraint to health, livelihood, productivity, and the opportunity for women to be drivers of this just transition. But it's not only a narrative of victimhood, which is one that is very often portrayed. Women play an incredible role in our future, and if we do not bring them to the forefront of a just energy transition, then the transition is not just. And certainly in the clean cooking sector, we see the opportunity for women not just as customers, and they are our customers. They are the ones in the kitchen. They are the ones that hopefully have decision-making power over the appliances and the fuel, and we're working on that in many places. But they play a role as marketers, as distributors, starting clean cooking companies, and hopefully, as we free up women's time, improve their health and livelihood opportunities, they will equally play a role as researchers, as policymakers, as regulators, as entrepreneurs in driving systemic change, not just in the energy sector, but in a green economy writ large. And so I think for us to be very open and honest about what a just transition looks like, we have to face the reality that we are ignoring the constraints of half of the population, and particularly in Africa, where the access numbers are very low, population growth is outpacing our ability to provide clean energy services, and particularly access to clean cooking. We talk about just transitions, we talk about access to electricity, we talk about major infrastructure plays, but we are ignoring the fact that right now, people are dying, women are dying, collecting wood, making charcoal, cooking for their families. And these are the women that produce 80% of the world's food. They are smallholder farmers. They are on the front lines of environmental conservation, of protecting, conserving, and restoring forests. They are the agents of regenerative agriculture. And so as much as we talk about this future and envision what it will look like, I ask all of us to look at the realities in our country contexts, in our regions, in our villages, and in our sectors, and understand where are the immediate constraints that we can take action on that will then unlock the opportunity for some of these other areas that we're discussing today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. That's fantastic. And I think we live in a world where women are the majority, and as we know, young people are the majority. So the transformations we need will have to come from them. So I now turn to Patrick Rondo, who is the Union Advisor Environment and Just Transition for the Quebec Federation of Labor. So Patrick, we've heard from Rebecca, the specific context of Kenya, but this is also a matter for industrialized countries like Canada and the broader perspective of the union movement.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Thank you very much, everyone, for the invitation. 2050, I will be 80 years old, so it's well. So when we're talking about Just Transition in 2050, I think workers and their communities are going to be more engaged in a change, and workplaces will be fully mobilized around Just Transition, will have been implemented in the way it should mean. And we talk about social dialogue, mechanisms. We're talking about a very strong social protection for workers, labor rights implemented, which includes, of course, human rights, who are going to be respected, a right to work, which include equity. And I fully support that we must address this gender equity issue. So, concretely, how would it look in a workplace? First of all, I think those workplaces are going to be net zero. And when we're talking about net zero, we're not talking about compensating GHG emission, but by eliminating GHG production. And I think it's doable for 2050. And when talking about the net zero workplaces, of course we're talking about production, but we're talking also about the buildings, transportation, the habits of the workers, how do they heat, and so on and so on. Jobs will have been maintained, conditions, working conditions improved, and people who are going to lose their job in the future will have strong accompany policies from government. Living conditions of communities will also be improved, and we will have changed our economic system, giving it a more human approach, a more human face. Concretely, it means that every workplaces will have a very clear portrait of the impact that they have on the health, on the economy, and on the environment at the same time by transparency mechanisms and accountability tools. Workers will fully participate in those plans with the collaboration of different stakeholders who are going to bring solutions at the table. This planification will be provided because in the workplaces, workers and employers are going to work together in joint committee. And when we're talking about professional training, upskilling, reskilling, it will be planned with the workers as well as Just Transition plan. And we will value the workers for the work that they are doing. And that is a key to engage them at the same time. As for the implementation, there's going to be an ongoing dialogue between workers, communities, environmental NGOs, investors, and so on. And we will identify the funding avenues and obstacles, and financial actors are going to be part of the solution. Finally, there's going to be equity in employment, and decent work will go hand in hand with decent lives. Is it science fiction? Maybe. But at the Quebec Federation of Labor, we're trying to implement this plan right now. We created something that we call the Just Transition Labs, and we're trying to engage workers and their communities around those very specific items that I just talked about. And of course, and I do support Rebecca that it's not just an energy issue. It's for every workplaces, and for the moment, we ask our affiliates who wants to be part of that, and the list just keep on growing. We have natural gas transportation union who said, yes, we want to be part of that. The plastic workers industry has said, yes, we want to be part of that. The workers of the city of Montreal said, yes, we want to take part of that. The workers in the construction sector said, yes, we want to be part of that. The postal workers, the forestry workers want to be part of that. So to engage them, we have to listen to them and value their work. And once again, it's not just an energy issue. And we want a just transition and not just a transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, very much. And I appreciate that you recognize the need for unions to engage with other actors in finance, in industry, and communities. And I think this is absolutely a collective effort. So I would just turn to Mr. Pravir Deshmukh, who is Senior Counselor at the Confederation of Indian Industry, because as you've just said, there is a critical role for industry in this transformation. So India is a country of innovation. So please tell us where we are in 2050.
Yeah, I'm audible. So I think by 2050, what I'm thinking about, the challenges will be mostly three. Our food or agriculture system, the waste management, and it might be related to the solar energy or renewable energy or lithium-ion batteries or all these things. And third will be the water, because I think we're already in the stress. Because of climate change, more stress will be on the fresh water. So I think let's think about how industry thinks about all these challenges, that they take vulnerability, what is meant by vulnerability. And again, the agriculture system, the skills in agriculture is only the person who is not able to properly educate, or their skills is still not recognized as a skills. What we recognize as a different workers in the industries, they have a minimum pays and all these things. For farmers, there is no minimum pay. It's only it is not an option, it is only a lowest choice they are actually going. So I think if we want to see this, address this challenges food system by 2050, we need to focus on skilling our farming community, the farmers or the related communities for them. And I think that will be a bigger challenge because it's a huge industry. And if you consider India, 60% population is directly dependent on the agriculture. So I think it's a huge task for India. And if we see the central zone of the whole world or the global south, I think again agriculture will be a bigger challenge by 2050. So we should focus more on educating farmers, providing them more technologies, more solutions. And at a CII, we also started a similar initiative in 2018. And again, this is addressing some other issues. I think you already know that Delhi is facing the air pollution every year because of the crop burning. Because there is no solution available with the farmers. There is no skilling for that solution also. So CII has taken a task, started a work with only 18 villages. Now that work has grown to 300 villages. And all these 300 villages actually, they're not now burning any crop. They're using that for the commercial purpose. It is going for the creating energy resources, building some infrastructure boards and all these things. So again, there is need a supply chain. There is need a training that how you can manufacture, process them in a very structured way. And it can be it is not a waste, it should be a resources. I think that is again a required. So we need to identify for each area in agriculture system that what should be the right pathways rather than burning them or dumping them somewhere. If there are pathways, I think then it will be much easy to address the issues, help to the farmers. So that's one of the project. Another project what we're piloting, and I think this is also related to the investment part. This is more on the sustainable agriculture. So what happens in mostly, if the farmer is going for sustainable agriculture, they need to register the project, then the carbon credit generated, and that is only be transferred. What we're trying now that we are trying to get companies on board before, from the starting of the project. So the company will be given a commitment that they will work in 50,000 hectare areas or 3 lakh hectare areas, and they will invest upfront. And the investment value is very less. So for first year, the value is only coming around $40 to $50 per hectare. And the second year, the value suddenly goes half. So it's only $20 to $30. And the return to the company is much bigger. So it can help us reducing the 5 to 6 tons of CO2 per year, which might be reducing the fertilizer uses, organic carbon increment and all these things. but farmer also can sell that product as a sustainable product in the market. And again, we're not stopping only that area, we're also trying to build that market for the farmer so that he will not again go back to the similar system, he will adopt the new systems, and that can be showcased as and again, the skill is very important, so we need to continuously train them. And again, if we start right now with some of these projects on ground, definitely we will be able to answer these issues. And I think investment, frankly speaking, I didn't think the CSR or investment from other side or the other parties who are not interested in that work, it will definitely help. We need to identify who is benefiting. It might be through carbon credit, it might be through the market opportunity or getting the better food products. So I think if we are able to build that system, I think investment may not be a bigger challenge, but again, we need to build that market and systems in a much better way.
Thank you very much, Praveer. I think that's fantastic, and these are indeed the solutions that we need to scale up. And as you said, if the market if it's bankable, workable, then investments will come in. So it's now my pleasure to turn to our last panelist, Simon Schmidt, who is director Just Skill Lab and partner in Skill Lab. Simon, we've talked a lot about skills, and this is a fundamental area. So over to you, please.
Great. Thank you, Mustafa, first of all. And yeah, 2050 is a long ways away, but it's going to come quicker than we all think. So when I look at 2050, I hope that where we'll end up is a really people-centered, life-centered ecosystem when it comes to the labor market and the workforce development system. What that really means for us at the Just Skills Hub and Skill Lab, is recognizing and centering the skills and capabilities of individual workers, individual people, and really everybody that participates in this thing we call life. In order to get there, we have to center something we talk about all the time in the education workforce development space, which is lifelong learning. But in order to effectively get to lifelong learning, and where we think about learning as human development and as a lifelong cycle, we have to figure out, and we have to recognize and realize where people are and what the status quo is. So the current skills, the current capabilities of workers, and use these skills and capabilities of workers as building blocks that we can build upon to get to a point where, yes, just transitions are possible, but also the requirements of industry, the requirements of the green economy are met. So what we do at Skill Lab and the Just Skills Hub is, our first priority and priority A is to directly and immediately help workers who are in transition scenarios and who may be at risk or may be in a scenario where they are being laid off or where their job is becoming redundant due to the transition to a green economy. The second priority for us is creating an informational data ecosystem that can help the social dialogue, that can help planning, that can help governments, companies, and all other stakeholders in the green transition to really recognize people's skills and to build upon these skills in terms of curriculum planning, looking at education, centering education, in terms of industrial policy, in terms of what sort of industries might be a good replacement in an area that has heavily relied on coal mining or oil and gas in the past. And for us, this means talking to people, centering people, and how do we do this? How is this possible at scale? And coming to something that Praveer said, technology, right? There are certain advancements in technology that may enable us to talk to people at scale, and it will not be a one-on-one conversation, but we can collect information, we can collect data from people that will help us center them and center their needs, their self-expressed needs in how we think about just transitions and how we think about transitions in general.
Thank you so much, Simon. And I think what you said about a people-centered approach is really the right approach. And that's the Iowa Centenary Declaration on the Future of Work is just about that. So, distinguished colleagues, we are reaching the end of our session, but I think we must have some time for interaction. And I wanted to know if we have Alexander Rivera with us here. Alexander, so would you mind just kicking off? You know, we've heard a lot of perspectives on different aspects of the debate. would you just want to give us any feedback on what you have heard, please? Alejandro, why don't you join us over here?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Alejandra Rivera from the Institute for Human Rights and Business. And thank you, Lina, for the invitation. This has been very great to learn from all of you and hear all your perspectives. I have written some notes that I think is very important to learn from you, just to highlight the importance on occupational health and safety, women empowerment, when we speak of clean cooking, of course, which is also a health issue. At the Institute, we work a lot with mental and physical health, so that's very important for us as well. The importance of the market, lifelong learning from the Skill Lab, and you touched on a very important point on the people-centered approach. Since we are from the Institute for Human Rights and Business, we use the human rights center approach. So from our point of view, when we ask the question that I think is very important to us, this coming from the future, how do we look at ourselves in 2050? But what I have also hear a lot is that in reality 2050 is now, because the actions that we're gonna have today have a direct impact on 2050. So what did we did right now that we would ensure a just and equitable transition later? I think that's the key question. So the points that I wanted to make is maybe in two levels. I think first we need to have a framework of what are those transition actions to have a just and equitable transition. And for us from the Institute for Human Rights and Business, of course, this needs to be based in human rights. For example, non-discrimination principle, the freedom of association, freedom of speech.
You are leaving behind a third population, mostly women, who will be the ones to help you achieve all of these goals. So when we think about transitions, think about the fossil to green, but think about the no energy and how we get to build green economies off of that, because we can't do it without it. So that's my final word.
Absolutely. I think, Rebecca, just a quick word on the other side, very quick one, and we go to Lina for the end. We actually, 1 minute.
Okay. When I think about just transition coming from the labor side, it's not only about just energy transition, not only about speaking about transition in all those other sectors, but also transition in the energy sector, transition in the workforce sector. Because we are harboring on ensuring that we produce decent quality jobs for the working environment. And also the key thing is not leaving anyone behind in this transition. So our transition within the labor sector and beyond, it's all inclusive and taking care of each and every person towards this transition. Thank you.
Absolutely, leaving no one behind. So over to Lena.
Thanks very much. There's not much else to say. Just keep up the good work. Thank you very much all for doing that, for showing us that there are solutions that we have today that can be scaled in the future. And yeah, maybe one last thing I think that hasn't been mentioned, but I think that's crucial, is to work together, to work radically collaborate and talk with people. And we are all here to do that. So I think we'll still have this room for another 10 minutes. So if you want to engage with speakers, if you want to engage with us, I think rather than actually hearing from you, asking us questions here, let's just mingle, exchange contacts and radically collaborate on a just transition. Thank you very much, everybody.